I have with me Mr. Padmanabh Sinha. He is the Vice Chairperson of IVCA. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Pleasure as always.
You were telling me that there has been an increase in AIF inflows as well as PEs. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I think as you may have noticed, Bain presented industry study on private equity, and as per their data, they said that last year had about 25 billion plus of private equity and AIF investments in India, which is a record, and with significant growth from the previous year and significantly higher than it was pre-global financial crisis as well. So clearly the trend is upward, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to join yesterday when the SEBI chairman was talking. He again spoke about the increased salience of AIFs in India. And actually at 25 billion plus, it's as salient source for fundraising as say IPOs are or more. And we have had seen a few positive regulatory developments in recent times, which are also hopefully will lead to more flows in the future. The couple of recent ones have been one, removal of IPO lockup for AIF investors, and the second was on banks also being allowed to invest into AIF 1 and 2 domestically. So as you can see, there are successive developments happening which promote AIFs, and that's favorable. I think one important agenda item as we move forward is GST exemption when AIFs are pooling foreign pools of capital are being managed locally.
Right.
And again, the SEBI chairman also referred to it in his talk yesterday, that they want to encourage more domestic fund managers to be based in India, and more pooling of capital in India. So GST is a big friction cost there at the moment at 18%, such a significant cost. So, and these are truly export of services and promoting jobs and promoting the ecosystem domestically. So any sort of mitigation of that friction cost would be helpful towards that objective, and that would help further in terms of flows into India.
Right. It's been a very eventful year for IVCA. You all have been able to push forward key changes in policy. Some of them which you can tell us which were significant when you look back.
So I mentioned a couple of policy changes, the more recent ones, on the IPO lockup, and in terms of the growing the base of domestic LPs, banks being permitted to invest into AIFs.
Right.
But beyond that, there have been more changes in the past, clarification on characterization of tax for AIFs. The other one was, as we are seeking convergence between private equity investors and public market investors, was changing the period for qualifying for long-term capital gains tax to 2 years from 3 years for private equity investors. Actually, there have been about 20 changes in the last 3 years. That's what I presented in my opening address this morning.
Right.
And I think IVCA has been pivotal in many of those changes, but full credit to the government and to the regulators. They have been in listening mode and acting mode, and they've been quite engaged with the association, because they're also quite particular. They like to talk to the association rather than individual stakeholders, because they feel the association is representative of broad interests.
Right.
And they have been acting on some of that. So, and we continue to hope, like other areas like, for example, GST and a couple of other minor areas also addressed in the future.
Right. You mentioned the SEBI chief's address yesterday. He also cautioned about how PE and VC route should not be misused for things like money laundering. However, he said that self-regulation is more important rather than the regulator coming in and setting up some guidelines. Has there been any internal thinking on this, or will you all think about this?
No, so I think his reference may be to a broader use of the term, but if you see all the exemptions that are being announced, they are for AIFs.
Right.
AIFs are regulated entities, and SEBI itself does a full sort of KYC and regulates those entities. So I think those are kosher entities, the AIFs, and I think there's a little possibility of them being easily misused for other purposes. So I think, and that's where I think their concerns, government's concerns, may be around non-AIF structures, particularly money coming from offshore, for example, where sometimes they may have concerns that's not really PE in nature, but other sources of capital. But I don't know beyond the point what he briefly referred to.
Right.
I think there is a recognition that AIFs are regulated entities and have clarity about them, which is why all the exemptions or benefits they are announcing are specifically when you invest through AIF structures.
Sure. We also see that in the industry, we see the trend of fund startups, right? There are lots of individual independent funds which are coming up. How do you see this development?
I think there's nothing new in that trend. And it's healthy to have some new funds starting off at various points of time. My personal view, there's no sort of a typical number of startups that are happening currently.
Right.
There has been some element of consolidation in the private equity industry, particularly in the sort of mid to larger size funds focused in India,
Right.
which is also healthy in a way. But I think it's good that from point to point we have new entrants in the industry.
Right. You know, IVCA has also done something very recently, which has widened its ambit of members, right, by including angel networks.
Sure.
So what was the thinking behind that, and how do you see that changing the industry?
So that's in the early stages. It's just happening right now and being put into place. But the idea was they are also an important source for early stage and seed investing into companies. So, our effort at IVCA is to become more and more representative of the broader ecosystem. And as I presented in the morning, I think that's happening. We've added a considerable number of members, right from marquee global institutions to angel networks as well. And another category which has now been introduced is AIF category 3. So really behind all this, the thinking is to make IVCA more representative of the broader interests of the industry.
Right. And of course, the Conclave, it remains your flagship event. Congratulations on yet another successful edition.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, we look forward to, more successes for the industry in the future. Apart from, record sort of investments, exits have also been picking up for the industry, which is a healthy trend, because ultimately that will attract more global money, as there is a track record of exits, particularly undoing some of the bad history that global LPs had in India in the 2006 to 8 period. So I think structurally it looks positive for the industry. Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.